Hi, everybody, and welcome to another webinar for ProjectTeam. We just had our latest release on Sunday, and there's a lot of, I think, very usable features that were included in this release, and that's going to be what I go through today. So it is now 2 o'clock Eastern, so I think we're ready to start. As always, my name is Josh Whitmer. I'm one of the product managers here. I'm going to be spending the first 5 minutes doing a quick kind of overview of the agenda, and then we'll spend about, 20, 30 minutes looking at the new features, and then after that, I'll answer any questions that you all have in the audience today. If there are questions that come up after, of course, you can always email me, or most of you should have my contact information at one point or another. Feel free to reach out, and I think all of us here are pretty responsive in getting back to your questions. Also, this webinar is being recorded, so there's a bunch of people that have signed up that potentially couldn't make it because of holiday vacations and things like that. So we are recording it. I will post it on the typical channels, but you can also just ask me and I will send you the recording so you have access to that if you need it afterwards. And then if you are on different social networks, of course, we always say we'd love to have you as a follower. We post different updates and things happening across our company, not always just work related in there. So if you want to join, go ahead. For today's topics, the first is going to be an improvement or an update into our share groups. If you're a user of ProjectTeam already, you know that there are 2 group types in ProjectTeam. There are share groups and there are distribution lists. In the past, share groups, you could only put in users from your own company into a group, and there are many reasons for that, but that was how a share group was handled. Through working with a lot of clients, many of you on the phone included, have brought up the need to have some sort of role within your projects, whether that's a subcontractor role or project managers across different companies role or something like that. And in the past, there wasn't a great way to be able to fulfill that need with the way that we had share groups and the way that we had distribution lists. The difference between a share group and a distribution list is that for share groups, if you add somebody later to the share group, they automatically get access to anything that share group already had, okay? So it's a nice way, again, to kind of have a quote-unquote role. Distribution list was just a quick way to share at that time, kind of like email. So in this release, we've introduced 2 group types, really. The first, and by default, all share groups start as private. So private means only your company users on the project will be able to use that share group. You can include multiple users from multiple companies in your share groups now, regardless if they're private or they're public. And you can make a share group public from what was previously private to allow other companies to use your share groups. And I have a couple more slides just to go into this with a little bit more detail for clarification. The second item in this release, and really the second and third item, was improvements to our system fields. So as many of you know, we have out of the box things we call system forms. Those are typical construction industry forms like RFIs, punch lists, field reports, submittals, contracts. Those are all pre-built for you in the system. Of course, you can customize those by adding custom fields, but in the past, you were kind of stuck with just the custom fields. You really couldn't manipulate the fields that came by default on those system forms, which were called or are called system fields. But now we're opening that up so you can actually rename or provide a project alias for the system fields. So I'll go over an example of that. And then finally, the other big improvement to the system fields area is that you can now reorder your system and custom fields to be together. Okay. And I have an example of that with a request for information, which is a simple example, but there's a lot of areas that you can now reorder forms to fit your specific business processes, and that's going to go to logs and all that kind of stuff. So you can now rearrange the look of not only your forms, but the columns on your log. Starting off on share groups, we have the two different types of share groups now. So for those on the call that are existing users of ProjectTeam, every share group that you've ever created in the past has now been marked private. Okay, so every share group that you all have is private unless you've gone through and clicked a button for public. So all of those share groups are private right now. There's a difference between private and public. So really, the only main big difference between private and public is allowing other users from other companies to use that share group. Okay, so if something is private, let's say I'm ABC Construction and I make a share group on my project and I keep it as private because that's what it is by default. If I'm connected to any other companies on the project, when I go to share information, I'll be able to use that share group. When somebody from another company goes to share a document, they will not be able to use that share group, okay, because it's private. If I wanted to open it up, I would make it public. One also key clarification, adding users from other companies to a share group, it doesn't matter if it is a public or private share group. Okay. If I'm ABC Construction, I'm connected to some Mighty Engineering company, for example, I can include users from Mighty Engineering in my share group even though it's private. It's just Mighty Engineering will not be able to use that share group that I created if it's private. If I open that up to public, now they'll be able to use that as well. Another example of this is kind of shown in this quick animation that I created. Let's say that there are 3 companies on the project. There's a green company, a yellow company, and a blue company. From the graphic that's shown right now, I have the yellow company connected to the green company, so there's an arrow between them. And then I have the yellow company connected to the blue company, so there's an arrow between them. There is no connection between the blue company and the green company at this point. Okay, so maybe that's a general contractor and 2 different subs or some example there. Let's say that the yellow company creates a share group and by default it is private and includes a user from the blue company and a user from the green company in the share group. At this point, the only company that can use that share group, because it's private, even though there are users from multiple companies in it, is the yellow company. That's why it sits underneath the yellow company for now. However, if the yellow company now makes that thing public, then the green company and the blue company can start to share to that share group because it's a public share group now on the project. Really, it's based on connections. So if there was, for an example, a red company also in this graphic, because the yellow company does not have a connection with the red company would not be able to use it. But because the yellow company has a connection on the project with the green company and the blue company, now all 3 companies can use the share group because they're both connected to the company that created it. You will notice here now that even though the green company and the blue company do not have a direct connection, they can both use a share group that has users from that other company in it. So over here, this blue company on the right-hand side, if blue company shares to this share group, they are actually sharing to potentially a green user, okay, even though there's no connection between them. Okay, so that's the difference between private and public share groups, and you can decide if you want to keep things that you've already created private, or you want to open those up and allow other companies to use them. The only note is if you do that, people would be able to share to other companies potentially that they don't have a direct connection with. Also, one note, once you make something public, you cannot go back to private at this point. Okay, so you can always make something private to public. You cannot make something public to private. All right, so that's a quick explanation. Let me go into the actual product and show you what I mean by all of those examples. I'm starting off here on the My page as Josh Whitmer. Okay, I work for a company called ProjectTeam. I can go into my projects and I'll go down to this webinar sample project. From here, just like before, if I scroll down to the project administration area, which is this big box at the bottom of your project homepage, you have different options. The boxes have been reordered a little bit based on new rules. And you'll notice that the share groups box is now up in the project setup area. Okay, it's the second option that I have. If I click into share groups, it's going to show me a list of all share groups that I have existing. On this project, I don't have any. On your existing project, if you are a user, you might have share groups already. I can create a brand new share group, okay, just by clicking the new button and then adding a name and a description. So let me just say, I'll just say important team members for now. Okay, all important team members. Okay, and then I can save that. One thing that you'll notice is by default when I create a new share group, and this is same functionality as before, there's no immediate group membership yet, so I can go in and add whoever I need. You'll also notice there's a new button up here that says Make Public. Okay, if I were to click that, it's going to give me a confirmation to say, are you sure you want to do that? So for now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you if I add membership, there's two users on my job right now. There's Josh Whitmer and Wayne Frias. Josh works for ProjectTeam. Wayne works for Solution Guidance. Okay, so two users working for two different companies. My company, ProjectTeam, has a share group, and then the user from my company, which is myself, now can use that share group. So I'm going to actually go into the forms area. I can go into, let's say, request for informations. I'm going to look at my RFI log. I can see RFI number 1 here is only shared to me. If I click share, now I have the share group available to me called important team members. Okay, that's that new share group. It shows Josh and Wayne are included in that group. It is a private group though. So if I log in as Wayne, okay, so I'm going to open up a new window here. Wayne works for a company called Solution Guidance. He can go into the project. He has access to that same exact project because we're connected on that project together. It's a webinar sample project. He can go into, let's say, a request for information. He doesn't have any, so I'll just create one real quick. Or let's do a better example, maybe. Right, fixtures and conference room. And then when he goes to share, he does not have the option to share to that group called important team members because he works outside of the ProjectTeam company, and the share group that someone from the ProjectTeam company created was private, not public. Okay, so I'll just cancel this for now. And now he has a new RFI only shared to himself because he didn't have the option to share to important team members. However, if I go back as Josh, okay, so I'll cancel this as well. I'll go back to the project home page here. I am going to mark this thing public. So if I say mark public, it's going to say, are you sure you want to do that? It can't be marked private after it's been marked public. I'll say yes. Then it's going to say this is a public share group at the top of the page. Once I do that, as Josh, there's really no change. I can say share here, and I see important team members available for me to share to. If I go as Wayne from Solution Guidance, a user from a different company, and I go to share this document now, you will see that I can, as Wayne, share to important team members. Okay, so making that share group public from what was previously private is going to allow all the users from companies that I'm connected to now use that share group. Okay, and that share group has users from multiple companies in it, which kind of allows easier sharing. It's not just about sharing though. I mean, if I go into Josh here, I could set field access. So if I go to customize fields, I could add access, let's say the RFI number here. I can see field access. I can set access for important team members, okay, which Josh and Wayne are in. I could set this for workflows. If I go to the project homepage and go down to workflows, I can set up new workflows here and add steps to my workflow. And in the step for send to, I can now include the groups that I have set up. Okay. A group can be empty. So now at my workflow steps, I can have empty groups and I can fill those people in later. This is going to be especially important maybe for project templates. As you're creating your project templates, you might want to set up your forms, kind of set the access for the different fields that you have on your templates based on subcontractors or whatever role or share group you have. And then you can set up workflows as well. So I have a 4-step workflow, for example. The first step in the workflow is going to be sent to all team members. The second one is whatever you want to put in there to have those share groups in those workflow roles. All of this is laid out in our help. So if you don't know, you can always go and click your name. You can say view help pages, and there's a bunch of information about share groups and other things that I'm going to talk about today in those help pages. You just have to search for them. So that's kind of a quick overview of share groups. Okay. The next thing I want to go over real quick is the different field edits that have been done. So if I go back to my RFI, for example, okay, so I'm going to go to request for informations. Josh, because he works for the company that created this project, he's going to have some additional abilities now within the system fields of his forms. I'm on a system form, request for information. Okay, it's not something that was just created custom on the project. The RFIs come out of the box with ProjectTeam. And I can go to customize form fields. At this point, you can see there's a number of system fields showing up. Those things came by default. In the past, those were kind of static fields that just stayed where they were, and you couldn't do anything about them. Now, you do have this edit ability on the right-hand side, if you are from the creator company, to be able to edit information about these system fields. So, for example, let's say my company is not used to the word subject for kind of the opening line of an RFI, and rather I'd like to change that to something like RFI title. All I have to do is go to edit. You can see the field label is called subject, but you can now apply a project alias. So I'm going to just type in here RFI title and then save that. You'll notice that the subject field is now have a label or a project alias of RFI title. Question maybe is fine for me, but the answer, maybe I want to call that official response. Okay, so all I have to do again is click on the drop down, say edit, call this thing official response, and save that. Now that I've added project aliases to my system form on these system fields, if I go back to, let's say, the form log and look at any of my RFIs, I will see those new aliases showing up on the view mode, on edit mode. It also is going to go through reporting, merge templates. All of that will now reflect your new field name. If you are an existing user of ProjectTeam and you already have things like reports and merge templates created, changing a project alias is not going to affect any of those existing reports, merge templates, or anything like that. Those will still work. They will show the new name, so that's all going to work fine. But here I can see RFI title, question, and official response are showing up. You'll notice that there are other fields on my form here that are also showing. I have some custom fields, RFI number, due date, and a complete checkbox. These things I need to track, but maybe I'd like to have RFI number above my RFI title, and I'd like to put due date above the answer because I want that to show below my question. So I'm going to cancel this for now. I'm going to click into Customize again, go into Reorder, and here I can just drag and drop to reorder my field. So I'm going to say RFI number should go right above RFI title. Due date should go right underneath of question. Then I've got official response, and then a complete checkbox, and I can say save. Those are now reordered on my form here. In the properties area, I can go back to my form log, check out my RFI, and I see now RFI number, RFI title, the order that I specified from that properties area. If I go into edit this, same thing. I've got RFI number showing up first. I can say 001, RFI title, question, whatever it is. This is not strictly RFIs. I could do this on any form throughout the system. I'll save that one for here. This reordering also allows you to kind of reorder your logs as well. So the log is always going to match the way that the fields are laid out on your form. If I go back to the RFI log here, I see RFI title, question, and official response. If I want to, I can configure my log to show my RFI name, or RFI number, and the due date, and let's say the complete checkbox to show them all. If I save that, you'll see now the RFI number is showing up first, and then my title, question, etc. There's a question that popped up here about grids. Yes, so if I go to something like a, let's say, there's a lot of, so the reordering and the aliasing are going to work throughout the system. So I think one good example of this, okay, if I customize my RFI form here, there's two types of, the person that wrote in called them grids, what we call collections, okay, collections of different fields and columns and rows. Two types of those collections. If I say new here, there's two collections. There's a default collection, and then there's a reference collection. I'll start with a collection. So a normal collection here, and I just say reviewers, maybe. And I can start to add my columns for this collection. So I'll just say there's the name of the person, reviewer, add in new, and then I'll just add their review. So I'm going to add a multi-line text here. And I'll just save that. There's two of those in there. That's fine for this example. If I scroll down now, I have this new collection. I can view the columns, and I can reorder those fields. This is a custom field. You could also do this on system fields. So I think if you added like a payment application, if you added a custom field to the end of your payment applications, you could now reorder that to be anywhere you needed to. Okay. The second option is reference collections. So if I go up here just to show that real quick, I'll say new. I'm going to say a reference collection, say next. And let's just say this is, for whatever reason, punch list items. For my reference form, I'm going to say punch list items, and I can include these different columns in my punch list item reference collection on my request for information. Okay, so I have a document referencing another document on here, and I'll just save that. If I look at my RFI, I've got subject, item description, general notes. Those are all coming from fields from my punch list items. If I edit this and I add punch list items, okay, it's going to give me a list here of all the different punch list items. I'll say 1 and 2 are related to this RFI, and now it's showing up on my RFI, okay, in the order that those fields show up on the punch list item. If I go over to the punch list item, so I'm just going to open up a new tab here. Okay, now I'm looking at a punch list item, 001, hole in the wall. I can customize this. I can change subject again to item description maybe, or item name. I can also reorder the due date to be the first thing that shows up in my punch list item. So I'll save that. Now if I go back to RFIs, and since I had that tab open, I'll just refresh it. Now it'll say due date, item name, item description. So all of these renaming and reordering is going to work no matter where you are in the system. It's all going to respect the properties that you set. So that's all for you. To clarify that one question, if I go to payment applications here, I could go into customize. There is a collection at the bottom here for item breakdown that shows all the items for typical AIA G702, G703, I think is the document that has the big grid on it. If I added a new column on here, let's just say internal notes or something. Okay, so I'm adding this to the system collection, which is called item breakdown. I can now reorder my fields of this collection, or what the other user called grid, and take internal notes and put that right next to the value. Okay, so I can reorder this however I need to fit my exact business processes. Okay, make it consistent for the users that are actually filling out this data to know what they're doing there. I'll just cancel that for now. So that's kind of an overview of the big things that have changed in ProjectTeam over the last couple of weeks. I do want to show one more thing. If I go to, let's just close this. If I go to, let's say this punch list item form, there's been the need for pick lists to have a search. So if I go in here, I'm just going to add a brand new pick list field on my punch list. Okay, so let me say new. One of the items that you have in the customize is pick list. So it allows you to pick from values. I'll say next here. I can look up just a quick long list here of colors. Okay, so I'm just going to say, oh my gosh, can I take these things? No, I can't. Well, let me just go in here and say, use new options. I can bulk add and just say red, blue, yellow, green, purple, pink, brown, black, white, whatever it is. Okay, so I can add different colors in there very quickly, and now those are showing up. If I save this, colors of paint, let's say. If I save this now and go back to my punch list form and edit one of these, instead of having to choose, I can just type in and it'll find that value for me. Okay, so it's going to allow you to just be quicker on filling out your different forms using the options that you have. Right. So that's all kind of I wanted to show. If I go back to the agenda today, we covered private and public share groups. We covered system field project alias. We went over reordering of system fields, and then we quickly talked about the pick list searching. Okay, so I'd like to open it up to questions if you have any so far, and I'll be able to kind of answer some of those for you. The first question is about the share groups. I think it's this slide. Can the green company have view only and the blue company have full access? Surely you can do that. So that would really not have to do with your share groups. I mean, each company by default has its own share group on the project. So you could say on a form, for example, for RFI, if you have RFI number, I want to give the green company the ability to edit RFI number, but the blue company can see but not edit. You could do that. If you put both the green company and the blue company in a common share group, then they would get whatever the permissions are set for that share group. Second question here, and I think I answered it earlier, does reordering work on grids? The answer is yes. So in addition to the project area, there is the ability to manage forms at the company area. Okay, so this company forms list here is going to allow you to see all your different forms. You can add custom fields, you can add variations. You cannot set project aliases at the company form area. Okay, so there's a lot of complication with those things, and also business. We don't want to have too much business confusion on multiple companies joined on the same project setting multiple different system project aliases. So to work around that as a user, what we would recommend is you set up your forms at the company form area. You have a project template, okay, which is going to help you in general just create projects faster. You can set your aliases. You can set your reordering of fields at the project template level. And then when you create new projects from the template, you'll automatically get the properties established on that template. Okay, so it will have the project alias. It will have the reordering of your fields. All right, well, I think that's it. I think I covered most of the questions. If there's anything else, I will reach out to you individually. But thank you all for joining. If we don't talk before, have a great holiday break if you are taking a break. And we look forward to many more releases in the new year and continued partnership with most of the companies that are on this call. So thank you and have a great holiday.